So, question 14, Don says, would you explain the last comment about the configuration in time-space? Ra says, healing is done in the time-space portion of the mind-body-spirit complex, is adopted by the form-making or etheric body, and is then given to the space-time physical illusion for use in the activated yellow ray mind-body-spirit complex. It is the adoption of the configuration, which you call health, by the etheric body in time-space, which is the key to what you call health, not any event which occurs in space-time. Beautiful. You see, first things first, roots is important, first and foremost. So healing is done in time-space, always, because what we call the space-time manifestation of the body, this third density yellow ray mind-body-spirit complex, is just a manifestation of that. I've always seen it as a sort of projection of the time-space self that exists, which is potentially perfect in balance. So we come here to work those imbalances to speed up the process of evolution. So healing, as we call it, in the physical body happens when the new configuration in time-space is accepted. Now, before this keeps going into the abstract and gets very confusing, what we're saying is that the mind, when the mind accepts the new configuration through the processes that we talked about, health, then at that point, the body will heal. We don't have to have perfect physical health for that to have happen in time-space, you see? So it's all about accepting. They say it is the adoption of the configuration which you call health by the etheric body in time-space, which is the key to what you call health, not any event which occurs in space-time. Oh, another key ingredient here is the form-making or etheric body, higher self, or indigo ray, form maker body. This also helps to show that for people who say, oh, I would like to have my higher self, I'm going to talk to my higher self, and so on. There is still this division in thought between the self, the apparent self, and the higher self. The higher self is that which you train to embody here. The higher self is always available. The higher self is present in you. It's only if you choose to use it in your day-to-day activities. And this is the training of the adept. The initiate seeks to bring the intelligence of the higher self. I call it higher intelligence. So as to not keep dividing selves here. So many selves. This is exactly what Gautama Siddhartha did. He said, let's do away with Atman, Jivatman, Brahman, and all of this. There's just one self. That's it. Let's not get too complicated here. People get confused with all of this, and then they say, will Jivatman become Atman? At what point? And so Buddha said, let's do away with all of this. So I will do the same and simply state that it is the higher intelligence, as you accept the new configuration of yourself, that which works in faith. That one is the one that accepts the healing and says, apply. Period. That's it. This becomes a lot easier as you begin to work from the single-pointed awareness of pure presence. And so its qualities of higher self starts materializing here. My friend Aaron Abke is doing a phenomenal work in terms of energetics, and he concludes that the higher manifestation that we can have here in third density is basically living through the higher self, embodying the higher self. And I agree with him in this regard, because this is what we show as we continue to do our work of embodying this pure presence of awareness, which is really the ultimate goal. And it's really my focus in the Law of One, simply to use all of this material to show you the way, in whichever way possible, using the language that we all love of Ra, to show you that it's the same language that Jesus used. It's only that this one is a lot more sophisticated, or that Buddha used, again, only that this one, again, is much more sophisticated and not so obscured in a language that doesn't belong to us, unfortunately. We are using a separation language, a language that was born out of materialistic science. So that's not to say that we cannot understand the language of the Buddha, of course. I love talking about it, so it is possible. But in any case, whichever language we use, I, in the end, use an eclectic approach to all of this, but that is my goal. Anyhow, okay, so this complex paragraph simply means that the healing is done in time-space, and it is adopted by the higher self, meaning that you have to have a portion of your higher self aware here within you to accept this. It's not as complicated as it seems. You don't have to do yoga to access your higher self. You don't have to do years of meditation and so on. This is simply the acceptance of faith, the acceptance of the heart, actually. So many ways I can paint this, but you get the point. Ra continues to say, in this process you may see the trans-dimensional aspect of what you call will. For it is the will, the seeking, the desire of the entity which causes the indigo body to use the novel configuration and to reform the body which exists in space-time. This is done in an instant and may be said to operate without regard of time. Yes, of course it does. It's instantaneous because it is your will. You see, just like it's you see, this is the power of consciousness. You can see a quasar and then see your finger at the same time. How does that happen? I thought the speed of light was the maximum speed that exists in the universe. No, consciousness has actually no speed. Consciousness is instantaneous. And so you can change your view of life in what seems to take years for some people in a flash because you became conscious of it. You became conscious of the new configuration that tells you, I am not unworthy. I am not, whatever. Can't think of negative things right now, but I am not whatever I was told. You see, so you can see the trans-dimensional aspect of what we call will. Will is this narrowing of the focus of our attention to direct our path, our train of thought, our direction of the path. So that will, the seeking, the desire of the entity which causes the indigo body to use the novel configuration. The use of the will and faith are the most important things that are to be derived in any work in consciousness, in my opinion. So, once again, this highlights the necessity of using our will. It's not about intellectually buying into it or getting into the emotional aspect of it and working with it, but just directing the will to that which you know that it is to be true. As long as you see it true, direct your will there, and everything else will unfold from it. So, the last part of this question or answer, Ra says, we may note that in the healing of very young children, there is often an apparent healing by the healer in which the young entity has no part. This is never so, for the mind-body-spirit complex in time-space is always capable of willing the distortions it chooses for experience, no matter what the apparent age, as you call it, of the entity. So, just the last example that Ra gives here, that the healing of young children seems to be performed by the healer, but this is not so. Again, this is our view that the only thing that exists is the brain and how it can intellectualize reality. And so children who are not able to intellectualize reality, of course, we're just speaking as children. See, children have, the only thing that children need from us is the passing of the baton in terms of the rules that we are playing with. This is a game. Life is a game. In children, they are so much closer to the pure light of awareness and its behaviors that the only thing that they need is the rules of the game here. You know, from do not cross the road haphazardly without looking, both ways, all the way to society works this way. And it is your job to find a way in which to live in society and give love to people, give love to yourself. These are the real educations. We don't need the years of indoctrination that we have in school. Yes, to perform well in certain activities and so on and blah blah. Yes, we need, of course, yes, we need certain things, language and so on. But the true education comes from learning how to live with love. Is that possible? Is that even taught in school? No. So I'm not saying the school is not necessary, but we don't teach the most essential things. Let's put it that way. That's supposed to be in at home, and we know how dysfunctional our homes are, not even because of ourselves, but because of the attention that we have to pay to social matters and work and so many other distortions that exist out there. But again, I have nothing against all of that. It's just the potential value that we have with children. So yes, children have this inherent intelligence within themselves. So it's not even the entity itself, like the child who does it, it's the time-space portion of it. Just like you can say that an adult doesn't do the healing. It's never a separate self. The separate self doesn't exist. So what happens is that the information that is first greeted by the intellect goes deeper into the mind, which has no duality. And at that point, it lights up a light bulb, literally, and says, oh, yes, I need this, or I want this. So this happens regardless of age. It can happen with elderly people too. It doesn't matter. Because the first barrier, like I said, is the intellect. And once we pierce that, which in children doesn't really exist, there's no such intellect going on as a barrier. There may be questions and so on, but not the intellect, the strong intellect that we have to avoid these new configurations that are chosen or are offered to be chosen.